Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Log Show here. Sorry for that little technical difficulty right there at the beginning with the camera, but we are fixed. We are here with a wild sports weekend last week. We saw a lot of fun NFL football. We had an amazing slate. So many close games. We saw the Giants almost overcome the Packers, but Jameis Winston throws an interception late in that game. We saw the Bears win their third straight. They get a big win there. The Eagles, another snooze fest. What a surprise. The Philadelphia Eagles offense creates another snooze fest. We see the Broncos win their eighth straight and they top the Chiefs. Not only that, I'm just trying to think of the slate that I'm forgetting. We saw the Jaguars absolutely manhandle the Chargers. Panthers Falcons was a good game. Dolphins Commanders early wasn't a great game. It was kind of boring, but it was a close one. Bills Bucks was a great game. That one was an absolute shootout, a classic in that one. Bears Vikings, I mentioned that was a close game. Just a lot of close games when you go up and down this slate this weekend. Rams Seahawks was a great one. That one ended very excitingly with the with the can't remember his first name. The Myers. The kicker's last name is Myers. I can't remember his first name. I'm blanking on it for some reason. But he misses that 61-yard field goal in the Seahawks game for the Rams to take first in that division. Ravens-Browns was even a good one. So many good games this past weekend. Not only that, UFC 322 at Madison Square Garden. We will talk about that. Islam Makhachev. What a man, double champ he is. A fight that ended in a UD. We had 4 straight KO or TKOs with the Paredes one, Benoit Saint-Denis. So we will definitely be talking about 322, what happened there, and what I think the future is for those fighters. I only watched half of the MMA, the Demetrius Johnson MMA Guru podcast, so I didn't get my full breakdown of the fight. So I can't really break down the technique for you, but I could do what I saw with my own eyes, the best of my ability, without professional opinion, because I'm not a professional, obviously, as much as I wish I was a professional at fighting. I love watching fighting, but I'm not a professional. I will say what I felt, what I saw. What I thought and what I feel like is going to happen for the fighters going forward. Yeah. Not only that, I just got to say it. Landry Shamet, career game. What was that? 34, 32, something like that. So, the Knicks, man, I'm feeling it. I like how the bench is over there. So I'm excited to talk about the New York Knicks as well as this season progresses. Yeah, I'm probably not going to talk about St. John's that much today. They played William and Mary. It was close at halftime for some reason, and then they held William and Mary to 26 points in the second half and just absolutely dominated like they should against a school like William and Mary. So shout out St. John's as they start getting ready they have a Bucknell matchup, I believe, tonight. Actually, they play Bucknell, and then after that they move on to a little tournament out in Vegas where they will play Baylor and Iowa State. So shout out to Johnny's. That's the most I'll talk about them today. I will get right into NFL football. That is what I want to talk about, if I'm going to be honest. To start, and obviously being from the area I'm talking about, being from New York, New Jersey, and the Saints being so bad, so I'm not going to talk about my favorite team. So I've been talking a lot about the Jets and the Giants this year. It's just the truth. It's what I hear the most about. It's what's the most relevant in my area. It's what I see what's going on firsthand through the fan base and everything like that. So it's fun to really see what's happening with the New York Giants and the New York Jets as the season has progressed. And we get to Sunday, where the New York Giants are now playing a game against a Green Bay Packers team that is very much struggling. Offensively, they've been struggling as of late, as of the past 4 or 5 games. Jordan Love and this Packers offense just hasn't been able to get it started. They haven't been able to get going, and they've been struggling. You have a chance here with Jameis Winston to have this type of have some fun. For the most part, there were a few definitely that should have gotten intercepted. Like there were definitely a few plays there that were almost intercepted. It was we said it at first before I saw the replay 100 times. Me and my friend said it at first when we watched the game. A Jameis interception is bound to happen. Obviously when he has that whole history with the 30-30 season and all of that. There's going to be the jokes about the Jameis Winston interception late and blaming it. The immediate blame is going to go to Jameis Winston mentally. But when you look at the replay, the biggest problem there is Jalen Hyatt doesn't run that route all the way. You see it when he runs that corner and he hits the corner, and I don't know when he breaks on the route, if he doesn't like the way the ball is thrown, he thinks it's overthrown, if he doesn't think Jameis was trying to throw it to him. I don't know what was going through Hyatt's head in the moment, but what is clear to see is he stops running the route and starts jogging. And that goes back to when I bring up the New York Giants and all their woes as of recently and firing Brian Daboll and that whole situation. And I consistently look over there in the front office, and Joe Schoen continues to have his job. It's an absolute baffling situation for me with the New York Giants that happens, and that's a thing, that he has his job in those situations where Joe Schoen is really but it doesn't make sense. The personnel decisions that Joe Schoen has made over the past 3 or 4 years that he's been with the New York Giants has just been absolutely, utterly ridiculous and makes no sense. You have the one, first of all, obviously the biggest glaring one, that this year he might not be playing that well, but you have the whole situation of you let Saquon Barkley walk. So that doesn't ever sound well. That doesn't go well, right? So you have that one, first of all, with Saquon Barkley walking. Not only that, you look at this Jalen Hyatt situation, and time again, you question why Jalen Hyatt is even still on the roster. Jalen Hyatt isn't good. It's a problem for the quarterback. You had Jameis take the blame after the play, and maybe, you can look at it when you listen to the post-game press conference and you don't watch the replay, and possibly, is it possibly Jalen Hyatt was expecting maybe a back shoulder throw bullet, so he stops running expecting it to hit him right away, and Jameis Winston timingly thought that Jameis Winston, with the timing and them having no rapport, thought he was going to go to the corner, and he overthrows him there. It could be a miscommunication in that way, but the way it looks to the naked eye, at least, the way it looks to me, is that Jalen Hyatt stops running that route. And why he's even on the roster to stop running the route in that situation honestly baffles me, because you look at a situation where you let players walk time and time again as Joe Schoen, whether that be a player as good as Saquon Barkley, or this year with this practice squad situation, letting little Jordan Humphrey walk after you used his 4 call-ups off of the practice squad, a dude who has rapport with your rookie quarterback, a dude who practiced well with your rookie quarterback, a dude who your rookie quarterback liked to do. Yes, your rookie quarterback wasn't playing this week, so that doesn't matter. But still, in that situation, you look at these decisions out of the front office of the New York Giants, and obviously Brian Daboll hasn't thanked the front office and everybody in the New York Giants, because he has to be sitting there. I heard Keith McPherson say this yesterday on Brian Daboll's got to be sitting there, and he's got to be sick to his absolute stomach right now that Joe Schoen still has his job, while Brian Daboll, after, yes, he made Daniel Jones the scapegoat, and you saw all these other scapegoats for Brian Daboll. Yeah, he didn't have his best stint there in New York, but Joe Shane is just as much as that problem. And it's not like, Joe Shane has had these amazing drafts time and time again. Um, uh, yeah, you have this one in this recent year where you get Scattaboo, you get Dart, and you get a group of good players. You get Abdul Carter, and you have that there for you as the New York Giants. But I think this year they credited it to Brian Dable loving Jackson Dart and and that. So what credit does Joe Shane have to, again, I said this last week when I talked about the Dable firing for the first time when it was fresh in my head right off of that Monday. I was here on Tuesday talking about it, and I couldn't help but think that decisions you've seen him make time and time again. And you could argue that those decisions have directly now led to a loss with, yes, like I said, multiple times. You have the excuse of, well, Jackson Dart's not in there, so you don't know how he would have thrown that ball, how he's thrown that ball to Jalen Hyatt in practice. Jameis Winston and Jalen Hyatt really haven't practiced. Jameis Winston hasn't practiced with the ones all year. They don't have this type of rapport together that maybe Dart would have with Hyatt, or even if Russell Wilson was in, maybe he would have with a Jalen Hyatt. Yes, you have that excuse. You have these little excuses, but I can't sit here but think that the direct decision and the stubbornness of Joe Shane to say that Jalen Hyatt is this good player that deserves to be on this roster, that deserves to get playing time and time again, is proven incorrectly in that statement with Jalen Hyatt, and is letting other players not get roster spots that have proven to have good chemistry and good connection with your young quarterback or anybody on your team, letting them walk and letting him just keep his roster spot, whether it's him rotting on the bench or him not running routes in the game. He's such a practice player for the NFL, and it's a so I don't know how he still has his job, and I can't imagine that if I'm John Mara and the New York Giants ownership, that I would want him to keep his job if they keep losing, if they lose two more. Why am I going to let this dude choose my next head coach? Why? When he was the one who told me to let Saquon Barkley walk, and the next year he was the Super Bowl MVP or he wasn't the Super Bowl MVP, but he was arguably the MVP of the Eagles realistically because he excelled them to that point last year. He was that dangerous of a weapon. He had a backwards hurdle in an Eagles jersey. That wasn't Brian Dable's decision to let him walk. That was Joe Shane. This year, the big one that everyone was talked about last week was little Jordan Humphrey getting picked up by the Denver Broncos and not being on the Giants' active roster. And Jalen Hyatt still was. And not only that now Jalen Hyatt is the reason for a loss because he didn't run a route. And it resulted in an interception in a very, very clutch situation, in a very winnable situation of that football game. And it's the honest truth. It was a very winnable situation for the New York Giants. And that interception said no. Thursday did their thing, honestly. They played a lot for the bye week against the Bengals and stuff like that. Was ripping it up. Ripped it up against the Patriots too, low-key. I'm not going to lie there. So, shout out Justin Fields. But the next game that I do really want to talk about here is the Denver Broncos, man. What a win out of Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, really. They win their 8th straight. That would be with the win over Kansas City on Sunday. And, I mean, I keep saying it to the people around, a lot of people about the Denver Broncos as they keep winning. It's hard to win 8 straight football games in the National Football League. No matter who you are, no matter who you play, winning 8 straight football games in a National Football League season is a very difficult thing to do. And this Denver Broncos team and this Denver Broncos defense especially has just time and time again proven everybody wrong. and just keeps getting unlikely wins and close wins against teams that, even though they were 8-2 and have been playing well, not a lot of people thought that they were going to beat Kansas City after winning 7 straight so far. Not too many people had them winning that game. And it was a hard-fought game. It was a very defensive game. You know what I mean? Denver Broncos scored 1 touchdown in that entire game. They had 22 points on 1 touchdown. Like, that's insane to think of. That they were marching downfield. They were getting a scoring position. They were doing well. You know what I mean? Cortland Sutton did his thing. RJ Harvey had a decent game. So you saw pieces out of the Denver Broncos. Obviously, Bo Nix had a buck 20 or 220. I mean, so like he played well, but no touchdowns on his part. You have the run. They did just as good as a job defensively, stopping Kansas City and holding Kansas City to not really getting touchdowns. Kansas City scores 2 touchdowns or a touchdown in this game, I believe. And you did a good job late at holding them to not only not a field goal, not scoring. They scored. They took that. They tied the game at 19 there. And it was close. Or it was over the Denver Broncos. So they are doing exceptionally well as of this moment. What else is going on? What else is going on? What else was going on around the NFL? You had the Chicago Bears. I said that in the intro. Chicago Bears. Shout out Caleb Williams. He's been this past couple weeks here where he's just, he has like just over 1,000 yards over these past 8 games. Chicago Bears have won 7 of their last 8, won 3 straight. The only team they lost to was that Baltimore Ravens team that, I mean, it was a tough loss, if I'm going to be honest, against Tyler Huntley and that Ravens team that you can't suffer. But Caleb Williams and this team have been really putting it together as of recently. He has 10 touchdowns over those 8 games, only 3 interceptions with a 90 passer rating. But they got a tough schedule coming up. I mean, they took with a win, with the win that they got this week, they took sole position at the top of the NFC North, which is something I never thought I was going to say at all this year. No situation did I say that did I think I was going to say that the Chicago Bears were going to be first in the NFC North, not the Detroit Lions, not the Green Bay Packers, who are slowly falling apart, even though I have them as my Super Bowl pick, so please pick them up, Green Bay, come on. But at no point I thought maybe I could say the Minnesota Vikings. I thought they were kind of an unpredictable team, but at no point did I think that I was going to say the Chicago Bears are at sole position at first in the NFC North right now, sitting at 7-3, and just absolutely have been on a tear recently. Like I said, winning 7 of their last 8. These next 3 games are really the biggest test of the season for them, though. They have Pittsburgh this week, then they go into Philadelphia, and then into Green Bay. So, obviously this week possibly playing Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did suffer that forearm injury. I believe it was a forearm fracture, if I remember correctly, but it is in his left forearm, so it's possible for him to play. He really wants to play because everybody knows how Aaron Rodgers feels about the Chicago Bears. So I understand why Aaron Rodgers wants to play that game. He has historically owned that franchise. He has said it to the fans in Soldier Field. I own you when he was in Green Bay and would beat the Chicago Bears twice a year, every year. So he definitely really wants to play this game. So he is going to try, obviously, to play. Is the reports is that Aaron Rodgers is trying to get everything together to play against the Chicago Bears this week. So we'll see how that turns out. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, and we see like him like out there on, Perk Rogers back type of deal with pain meds, and who knows what he's going to do to play this week against the Chicago Bears, because the reports are he will cut off his forearm if he needs to, pretty much. I made that one up. That's not an actual report. Don't quote me there, but my point is the reports are Aaron Rodgers will do almost anything to be on the field against the Chicago Bears this week. And then, like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The Philadelphia Eagles season is, and it's just so boring and so bland, and no, there's no big plays, and it's just I don't even know how to sit here and describe it, because I haven't even watched full Philadelphia Eagles games anymore, because they're so boring, and it's on Sunday Night Football, and it's boring, and it's 10:30 at night, and I want to go to bed. I watch the rest of it in the morning, and that's what I try to do. But like the Philadelphia Eagles offense is so boring. Just so the offense is just staying afloat, and it's working well, and it's winning them games. I'm not going to complain about that. A lot of people will complain about that. I'm not going to complain about that. A lot of people will complain about that. I'm not going to complain about that. Obviously, in this game, everyone's going to argue about that pass interference call that you have late in the game. That really was a terrible, terrible call. Shout out Chris Collinsworth for once, you know what I mean? Instead of comparing it to Mahomes, I really thought about it. And Patrick Mahomes is great. He really is. But here's a guy that had a great bad call. That's what Chris Collinsworth said for us. Collinsworth called it out. He goes, "That's a terrible call." So, yeah, I mean, it was a terrible call. And you could argue maybe the Lions drive downfield and kick a field goal and make it 12-12. Or 16, or score a touchdown, and make it 16-16. I don't know. The game was so boring, though, and this Eagles offense is so painfully boring, man. The Eagles offense is just so painfully hard to watch, and I can't get over it. I can't do it. So that game against the Chicago Bears will be interesting, because that might drive Caleb Williams up a wall. We might see Caleb Williams just fall flat on his face in that one. I don't know. But yeah, it was a fun week for the NFL. I mean, we got a lot coming up. When we take a look at the standings over here now, over in the AFC, the Broncos, you have them at 9-2, the Patriots at 9-2, Colts at 8-2 after their bye week this week. Steelers at 6-4, Bills at 7-3, Chargers 7-4, Jaguars at 6-4. So not a lot of shakeup in the AFC. A little bit of movement at the top because the Patriots and Broncos get their win, but you have the Broncos on a bye week. I'm like 90% sure this week. I'm just double checking because I had someone wrong this week. No, yeah, you do. Yeah, you have the Broncos and the Chargers on a have to try to win their 9th straight. Chargers also get a bye week. Patriots, they'll travel to Cincinnati this week, so that will hot here. So that will be an interesting game to watch in Kansas City. Colts coming off of a bye week. Can they continue this luck? A lot of people feel like after that Steelers game, a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, oh no, old Danny Dimes is back. He got scared. The Steelers defense scared him back to old Daniel Jones. No more Indiana Jones. He's Daniel Jones." That's what everyone was saying. I don't know. I think that's going to be probably one of the games of the week. Not the game of the week. That one's on the NFC side, but definitely will be an entertaining game to watch, as the Chiefs are, like I said, currently fighting for a playoff spot, not in the playoffs as of week 11. So they will try to upset the Colts at home in that one. Steelers, I talked about that one in depth. They play the Chicago Bears. Aaron Rodgers with that injury really trying to play this week. Caleb Williams and the Bears have been on a roll recently, so that one should be a decent one. Chargers on a bye. Jaguars in Arizona. They absolutely manhandled the Chargers last week, so if they go into Arizona and struggle, it'll kind of be a microcosm for what the Jaguar season has been, which is inconsistency. Like one week they look like an absolute team that could go on a run, and if the Colts lose a few games, maybe win the division, and then the next week they look terrible against the Raiders and win by 2 points, or get smacked by or a team that they shouldn't. But they smacked the Chargers last week, going to Arizona this week. That should be uh, a a should be a pretty easy win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Free world, the Cowboys got a win last night on Monday night against the Las Vegas Raiders. They absolutely smacked the Raiders. It was a close first half, kind of boring first half. But second half, CD, George Pickens, Dak Prescott kind of just got rolling and ended up absolutely demolishing the Raiders last night. So to see what they can maybe do against the Eagles could be interesting. You know, this is a Cowboys offense that is atop of the league in yards, in points per game. So to see what they could maybe do against this Eagles defense and a very much struggling Eagles offense against the Cowboys defense that looked very much improved after their new fancy toys last night, with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark finally starting to get going as well for the Dallas Cowboys. So that one is one I will keep my eyes on. I definitely will put those Philadelphia Eagles on upset alert this week. Rams at 8-2, they took atop the NFC West in that great game against the Seattle Seahawks at 4:05 this past weekend. That one was so fun to watch. I mean, they practically won the game off that absolutely gorgeous punt, as Pat McAfee would say, for the brand there. A gorgeous punt, a beautiful bounce, just missed the pylon, put him down at the half-inch yard line. And it just wasn't enough for Sam Darnold to get downfield and get into a range for Myers to hit that field goal, and he ends up missing it. So the Rams take atop of the NFC West. They will play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. That's what I probably think is game of the week, especially after what I saw the Bills and Buccaneers do last week. That was such an entertaining game. Josh Allen dropped like 45 fantasy points. So that one was such a fun game to watch for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sorry, I blanked there. Absolutely just blanked when I looked at my notes there. But yeah, that's going to be my game of the week. Rams Buccaneers in LA. Baker Mayfield and the Rams have been absolutely rolling recently, even though they lost their game to the to the Buffalo Bills. It was a close one, and that one was fun to watch. And then obviously the Los Angeles Rams, what Matt Stafford's been able to do this year is he's an MVP candidate. What he's been able to do, Puka Nacua is always entertaining to watch. So that whole game is going to be such a good one. You got the Bears right now, top of the NFC North at 7-3. They play the Steelers this week. Just talked about that one on the other side. They played against. I have them versus Seahawks, so I just blanked there. So let me pull up the schedule. I have it here on ESPN. The Seahawks play the Tennessee Titans. So the Seahawks, hopefully, that should be, again, that's another one. It's like that should be an easy win. There's no such thing as an easy win in the NFL, but you'd like to imagine that when you look at a team like the Seattle Seahawks and a team like the Tennessee Titans, that you kind of know the result that's going to happen there. So that one's going to be definitely one that I don't really keep my eye on this week, as the 7-3 Seahawks travel to Tennessee. So that's what goes on there. The Packers are currently sitting at the 6th spot in the playoff seeding at 6-3-1. They play the Minnesota Vikings in an NFC North matchup this week. Vikings obviously coming off that loss to the Bears, a hard-fought loss. Is J.J. McCarthy the answer? What's really going on up there in Minnesota? It seems like they were so exciting to watch at the beginning of the season, and then J.J. McCarthy got injured, and it all has just fallen off since there, even since he's come back. So I don't excuse me there, I apologize. I don't really know what's going to happen in this game. Two really struggling offenses, two great defenses between the Packers and the Vikings. So that one could be a good one down there in Lamber, I believe it is in. And then the Niners right now are in the 7 seed at 7-4. So they play the Panthers this week, which again, you'd like to imagine that the Niners are going to win that game, but the Panthers have been sneaky good this year. It's definitely not as much as in my head as like a guarantee almost. No game in the NFL is a guarantee, obviously. But, you know, when I say Seahawks Titans, I feel more confident in the Seahawks than I will say I do in the 49ers against the Carolina Panthers, the way that Carolina has played this year week against Atlanta. So, yeah. So that one could definitely be a sneaky game for the 49ers. That one's not as much as a shoe-in, but at home against the Panthers, they've been on a run recently. You finally get Brock Purdy back. You'd imagine that this 49ers team can finally put it together and go on a little bit of a run at the end of the season here. But yeah, the biggest shock about this whole playoff situation is with that loss to Philadelphia, the Lions drop all the way out of the playoffs because they don't have that tiebreaker over the Packers, and the Packers have that one tie as well, so it gets really weird in that situation. So we don't have the Philadelphia or the Detroit Lions currently in the playoffs. So that'll be a situation to watch as they play the New York Giants at home this week. Obviously, I went on my huge rant 2 minutes, so that is that for the Detroit Lions. Hopefully, they'll get a win this week at home against that that struggling New York Giants team with now Mike Kafka as the interim head coach, and you saw his performance with Jameis Winston. Who knows if we have Jackson Dart against the Detroit Lions? Who knows how that whole situation turns out? But moving on from football, I do really want to talk about what happened this past weekend on Saturday at Madison Square Garden. It was UFC 322. Our main event was Islam Makhachev moving up to the welterweight division to fight welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight championship, and boy was that an absolute domination from the man himself, the product of Habib's father. Him and Habib were known as the golden children, the golden students of I can't remember, I can't pronounce his full name, that's why I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it was Habib's dad before he passed away. Now Coach Habib has taken over since he has retired, and Islam Makhachev is now a double champ in the UFC after just manhandling Jack Della Maddalena. Jack Della Maddalena looked nervous from the get-go, man. When I tell you, I saw that man walk out and I've been watching UFC for a very long time. It feels like now, I do feel like it has been over 10 years now that I have been at least a casual UFC fan. But when it comes to, as much as a diehard of a UFC fan as I have been over the past couple of years, that have definitely gone up and down in how much I watch the events and what's going on in the UFC. I've watched a lot of fights where that is just the case, and you see that in a situation, and it happens a lot in these super fights more, honestly, which is weird. It's not really, you don't really see it in fights where people are in the rankings and still trying to fight their way up. You see it in kind of these super fights where one dude is going up in a weight or going down a weight and fighting someone new and fighting someone who just in general maybe has this aura around them that they, like Islam does. He's the number one pound for pound fighter, and he was trying to prove that this weekend. Jack Della Maddalena, as good as he was against Belal Muhammad and getting that championship, he was not a number one pound for pound fighter. He was not the number 2 pound for pound fighter. He was not a top 5 pound for pound fighter in the UFC, in my opinion, going into this fight. So you saw it the moment he walked out on his face, and you see the movements that he had, where he was moving more than he does. I've noticed that these guys in the UFC, man, these guys are killers, man. I don't know how they do it, how they get in this mental and the training and everything they do. I have such respect for these fighters to get in the octagon and beat the absolute living crap out of each other. But you see it when a guy's nervous, because, those guys that aren't nervous, like the Alex Pereira's, the Ilia Toporia's, back when you'd see it, you see prime Conor McGregor, the Habibs, the Islams, these, prime Israel Adesanya, John Jones. When the camera cuts to them and Bruce Buffer's hitting the John Jones, or whoever he's calling out, and it cuts to them, Alex, and you just see Alex Pereira, and he's just, the other dude's soul, bro. That's like that's the ones where I'm like, yo, this dude is too calm. You know what I mean? Those are scary guys. You saw JDM come into this fight, and Islam was standing there, and Islam was doing his thing and ready and like bouncing a little bit. But JDM was before the fight, like in the octagon, just bouncing, just like, and you could just see the nerves on Jack Della Maddalena, and you could just see what was going on there with him. Dominated for 4 rounds. You're gonna see that UFC kept making in rounds 4 and 5, where he just looked absolutely defeated in between rounds 3 and 4, coming out of his corner, just, okay, I guess I'll go for another round, because he's not going to finish me. Like, that was the face JDM had by round 3. He was just so demoralized and just so, okay. And it was such a just dominant performance for Islam Makhachev, proving that he is the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC right now. Obviously, you saw Ilia call him out on Twitter. If somehow that could happen, I don't know if it will, because I don't know if we'll ever see Islam go back down to 155 to fight an Ilia Topuria. Maybe he will, but I don't know if he'd necessarily do that. He looked so comfortable at 170. It's just so much closer to his walking around weight. He doesn't have to cut all that water weight. He doesn't have to go through that Jurassic weight cut. He looked so much stronger and so much more comfortable at 170. It's hard for me to believe that Islam Makhachev is going to go back down to 170. And on that, like dominant he's been, you have now IM with, and the way that the welterweight strap has kind of been bouncing around since Kamaru lost it. And in fights, Habib asked politely, he was like, "Can I put the belts on him, please?" And Islam took more damage from the 2 belts than he did all fight, and I could almost agree with that, with the way that he just manhandled Jack Della Maddalena. And so, like I said, had such a good fight against Belal Muhammad. You have Michelle Morales, who just had that absolute great knockout against Sean Brady. Parates just knocked out Leon Edwards on that same night. All those people. We haven't seen Shavkat in a minute. He's at 18-0. So do we see him maybe try to take on the monster or are they too close? Because I don't really know where Shavkat trains. I don't know if the whole Uzbekistan is part of that whole Caucasus Mountains, Dagestani, Georgian crew. So I don't really know how that turns out, but maybe we see Shavkat get a title shot against Islam Makhachev. I think that one could be very interesting. And then when it comes to JDM, I think he's looking at the same type of people to fight, where it comes to maybe a rematch against Belal Muhammad. Maybe he fights Shavkat Rakhmonov. Definitely a fight at the top of the division to prove that he deserves another title shot, but that's what he has to do. He has to prove another title shot. So it's whoever the number 1 contender is at the time for the monster that is Islam Makhachev. I think when JDM's ready, uh, you maybe have a title eliminator against a Morales or a to the co-main event uh of that card. Another absolute domination from who some people may call the women's GOAT now. I saw a lot of rhetoric online about, is she the women's GOAT now? Is she better than Amanda Nunes? I don't think she necessarily is. I still think Amanda's better. But DC compared him to, he said Amanda's Jordan and Shevchenko's LeBron because of how all around good Shevchenko is and the way she just technically beats everyone and just UDs and just outstrengths people. Just uses brute power, and it's not like she was fighting some scrub this weekend. Zhang Wei Li is a legend in her own right in the women's strawweight division, but it's funny how we talk about Islam Makhachev going up in weight and how he looked so much more comfortable, but then you see the women and it's kind of the opposite. And I did the math for 10 pounds for at either 125 or 115, depending on whether you're fighting at strawweight or featherweight as a woman, strawweight being the 115, featherweight being you are gaining or losing. It's more getting closer to your walking weight and stopping a weight cut. While for women, it's trying to find a way to gain more. Obviously, Shevchenko, Weili is small for 125 because she's so used to 115. And Shevchenko has fought even up at the bantamweight division for the women and has fought 135ers for the women's division and done that at such an... I don't think this fight was a knock at Zhang Wei Li at all. I think it was just a testament to how great Valentino Shevchenko is in this as a fighter, as an all-around fighter, whether she wants to wrestle, whether she wants to stand up. Yeah, there were a few exchanges where we saw Wei Li have very little success on the very little time we were on the feet, but there were a lot of times that even not in those wrestling exchanges, in the standing boxing exchanges, big strikes, a lot of significant strikes, and she just showed how next level she is as a fighter. I made a joke to I think it was a coworker. I don't remember who it was when I was talking about Valentina and how good she is. And it's like, bro, like I'm waiting for her to come out and a story or a backstory about her to come out. And maybe it has, and I just missed it or forgot about it and knew this, and then that's why I thought about this. But she's got to be former KGB, bro. And she holds herself back, and time again in press conferences and stuff like that, she'll sit there and she'll be like, "I love UFC." She'll sit there. She'll be like, "I love UFC. I love everything about it. Fighting MMA. It's my life. This isn't a hobby for me. It's my life." And time again, she just proves how good she is at what she does, man. It's so ridiculous. She proved, in my opinion, that to me, I still have Amanda as my GOAT, but they are in a class of their own when it comes to women's fighters. Who she's going to fight next, really risky, is because Kayla Harris, the PFL and Pride and all those other corporations that she has fought in. So Kayla Harrison is, no matter how big, the champion of all three divisions, she could say in a weird way, if she really wanted to. So maybe you see that out of Shevchenko, but I besides that, I honestly have no clue where you go with that from there because, she made up her loss on Grasso. She's beat the whole division. She's just absolutely been dominant her whole career for the past 5-6 years. She's just been so dominant. So I don't... thank God I'm not the matchmaker that has to find Valentina Shevchenko another fight because I have no clue who I'd have her fight against. For Zhang Wei Li, I think it's pretty obvious what you do. I think it was a valiant effort to go up those 10 pounds and try to get the weight up that you wanted to get. Try to go be a double champ. Try to go for that upper echelon, beating a great like that to become a double champ and hitting that upper echelon with both her opponent in that fight, Shevchenko, and Amanda Nunes. And there's nothing wrong with challenging for greatness. It's a respectable thing to do out of Zhang Wei Li. But there's also nothing wrong with saying, okay, I tried to fight for greatness. I will go back down and go win my belt at least and prove that this is my division. Go fight Mackenzie Dern, who I haven't fought, and win my belt back. Just to prove that I'm the queen of the strawweight division. Clear out another few names in that strawweight division that maybe I haven't fought to really clear it out and point in my career, or if not, I can just call it at that point. If you fight 3 or 4 more fights over the next 3 or 4 more years, at Zhang Wei Li, you sit there and you're around 36 at that point, if I remember correctly, So you have a situation there, dominated this division time and time again. There was no reason there. What I tried to do against Valentina was an attempt to become eternal, and I'm still great as a strawweight. I might not be the double champ, and if she wants to go for it after 2 or 3 more fights, maybe you go back to strawweight, fight Mackenzie Dern, you defend that title 1 or 2 more times again. And then, yeah, bro, guys, leading up, this 322 was crazy. It was crazy before leading up to that Shevchenko fight, though, because that's where we got our 4 straight, I think it was 4 straight knockouts, like TKO/knockouts. You have, it's that head kick in the 3rd round where Nickel fight, so I saw me. But Bo Nickel, nonetheless, I was not expecting him to win by knockout. I thought he could win the fight because the little things that I had seen about Rodolfo, not great. I wasn't that high on him. So Bo Nickel, I really thought was going to win the fight there. The sports books agreed with me. He was a high betting favorite going into the fight as well. I think he was like plus 300, plus 400, something like that. Something ridiculous like that. But he gets that head kick knockout in the 3rd round. And looking at Bo Nickel, I don't really know Nickel because I don't really know about rankings. His fight against Gregory Rodriguez, interesting situation to look, but I don't think he gets Dariush's face plants into the mat. Which is a huge win. For Benoit Saint Denis. I think next for him, realistically, I think when you look at the landscape of that division as well, you have Dan Hooker fighting Arman this weekend, actually. So he could fight maybe the loser of Arman Dan Hooker, which would probably be Dan Hooker. Maybe he fights, this was a big knockout. That was a big, exciting knockout against, like a Dariush who wasn't crazy that much high. Higher than, then knocks off like a Benoit Saint Denis. It's like, okay, now we could just give Patty the title shot. But even if Patty wins that fight, or something like Denis, because the way that division is kind of lined up is weird. Maybe, I think the most realistic is the loser of Arman versus Dan Hooker. Because the fights are around the same time of year, too, so it gives them similar recovery times. Like is a Dan Hooker if he loses to Arman. Or if Arman loses to Dan Hooker, that would be the situation to look at there. After that one, you had the Shadow Realmed Leon Edwards with that straight. Leon was winning that fight at first, too, but you saw at one point, everyone's making the meme about it, too, when he was getting hit in the face and he makes the face. That was really the moment in the fight that you kind of felt the energy shift, was when Leon had his back, was kind of tapping his face, trying to do some stuff. And Perates kind of gets off of it and feels comfortable from that moment on, starts clipping Leon, and then you just see him just doof, and Leon just crumbled. So that was a crazy one. Why do I not have what's next for Carlos Perates on my list of notes? Because the answer is in the other fight that night of Michael Morales beating Sean Brady, and Morales to have the title shot right away. But I think having him versus Perates in a title eliminator would be absolutely golden. Please, Papa Dana, please, Papa Dana, please. That's what I'm asking for. Carlos Perates versus Michael Morales. I would love that fight. I think that's the fight to make after both of them get their knockout wins. But one's a rough one there for the New Jersey Devils. So hopefully a speedy recovery. I know that the timetable was 8 weeks, I believe, for Mr. Hughes. So good luck there for Jack Hughes in that situation. Shout out, I do want to do this. Shout out my man John Cena, the Never Seen 17, the last real champion, as he got his last Monday Night Raw ever, and that really hits me personally as I am a professional wrestling fan. I know I don't talk about it that much on this show. I'll talk about it. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I've always been, since I was little, a huge wrestling fan, and to see this retirement tour for John Cena has been an emotional roller coaster. Maybe has not been the best run, in my opinion, that I've loved between the heel run and all of that. But, you know, to see everything that we've been able to see, we saw him do Edge's spear at one point because Adam Copeland now is in AEW. And these guys, we've seen Dolph Ziggler return because of the tournament, Matt Cardona return because of the tournament. And a lot of great things just happened because of this retirement tour. So I do just want to shout out that whole situation. Shout out, obviously, my small show. It'll never get to him, but shout out John Cena. Yeah, it's honestly it's an oddly emotional thing for me. It really is, with the whole John Cena situation. You know, it's a childhood hero of mine that it's good to see the reception that he is getting, and to see the greatest professional wrestler of all time, in my opinion, retire is a cool thing. So shout out that. And yeah, college football, the rankings come out tonight, so that's big. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys, everybody who tuned in. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Everybody who tunes in later, over time you are watching, I do truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate every single viewer, listener, live stream viewer, post live stream viewer, TikTok viewer. I appreciate every single one of you so much, as I'm just a kid trying to make my dream come true. So I do really appreciate it every single time. Stay tuned to the TikTok for some content. Stay tuned to the YouTube for some content. I think I might actually finally have a video idea that I really want to make into fruition. So really do over there. Check out Apple Music or Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm now uploading. This will be the first episode actually uploaded on Apple Music, on Spotify. So check me out over there at the Log Show for the audio only version of the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I will see you guys all next week. Peace out.